All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I'm your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am very excited for our guest today because I have Allie Wendt with me today.
Mhm,
Is a professional EOS implementer, and we're going to
mhm,
talk about the entrepreneurial operating system. If people have
mhm,
heard that before, or EOS, from both sides, because Allie has experienced that being an implementer in their family
mhm.
business, and now she's helping people doing it in their businesses. Welcome, Allie.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be
Mhm.
fun.
Yes,
So, Allie, we were talking beforehand, and this is a big week for you. A big week for you.
it is.
The kids are back to
The
school.
kids are back to school.
Woo!
Yes.
I remember those days, and it's just like,
Mhm,
you just want to sit back and just
mhm.
look around the house and realize that there's not going to be stuff piling up,
Mhm.
at
It's
least
so
until they get home.
wonderful. Like by the end of the summer, I was just like at my wit's end because you're trying to live in both worlds, like for 3 months of like family life and kids and trying to keep work afloat. And it was just like, I can't do this anymore. So
And then they
we're
go back to
happy.
school.
They're back. They're happy. They're having so much fun. It's good
Yep.
for
Hanging with their
everyone.
friends,
Yes.
hanging with their friends. Good
Yes.
stuff, because they get
Yeah.
tired of us as well.
Yep. Yes. And each other, like, the kids
Yeah,
need to separate.
yes, that's a good point
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Ellie, it's great. It's going to be great to talk to you today because you are unique, and there's a lot of EOS implementers,
Mhm.
and there are a lot of them that have implemented and helped them implement EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, in other companies.
Yep.
But I don't know how many of them come from a family business
Mhm.
where you implemented the EOS system
Mhm.
and rode that, saw that, how that helped that business, and then
Yeah.
went out to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep. It's rare for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So let's
Mhm.
talk about, let's talk about your family business, and
Mhm.
well, let's talk about your background in the family business, and then
Yeah.
we can work into US and do that because
Mhm.
it's I think it's a good story to let people understand that about you.
Yeah. Yeah, so, well, I came from Minnesota, Wisconsin area. Actually just moved to Salt Lake, about a year ago. So, we've already decided we're not going back to Minnesota, so we love it here. But so the family business was, back in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we were a human services organization, and we served adults with mental illness, chemical dependency, and homelessness. And this was started by my grandmother. She was actually an alcoholic and went through treatment many times. Finally became sober and then wanted to give back to the sober community, and so started a halfway home. She actually started it in their home, and so my dad will talk about it, and it's fun to hear from him, but he talks about, like, how she would just fill up all the rooms in their home, and he would, like,
Wow.
get kind of moved around to different rooms within the home, and she'd be like, "Hey, you gotta move, I'm gonna fill that room," and so he's like,
Wow.
eventually found myself living in the attic because she had just filled it all up, and anyway, so that's how it all started. And when she passed away, my dad took the company over. And eventually it was me, my sister, my mom, dad, husband, brother in law, cousins, all of us, a bunch of us.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yes.
That's it. That's pretty cool that your grandmother started, and once she found sobriety, was
Mhm.
able to help other people.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like became her absolute passion. I mean, her life was just ravaged. And it's interesting because my mom has the same experience with her mom, growing up with her mom, being an alcoholic as well. And so just understanding just how that really can destroy families and how redemptive it is when people are able to really find the support that they need to lead a sober life. And yeah, so she identified just a lot of ways that or reasons why, people weren't able to stay sober, and she wanted to be a part of kind of fixing that and really helping people. So that was
That's
how it all
awesome.
started. Hmm.
That is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. I just right. So good. So your grandmother passes, your family takes over the business,
Hmm.
you're working in the business, and uh, you get introduced to EOS. Let's talk about
Yeah,
why consider it. What were some of the things that were going on, and what really
sure.
brought you guys to that?
Yeah, yeah. So I was there for about 16 years total, and I think about 9 years into my time there is when my dad had gone to a conference, and he was our CEO and in EOS speak. He's our visionary at the time, and like any good visionary does, they go out and bring in new ideas. And so he had heard about EOS and brought this to the team, and we're kind of all like, okay, eye rolls, like there's another new thing that you know
Yeah.
we'll see if it catches. And but anyways, so he brought in an implementer, and really we started to gain understanding on what it all meant and why we needed this in our organization. But one of the things was my dad started succession planning very early, um, at least 10 years prior to when he wanted to exit the business. And um, I mean, he did this because this was a legacy thing for him. I mean, my grandma started the company. There was no way he wanted it to just kind of crumble once he passed it on. And so
Hmm.
he worked really hard to make sure that he could pass it on well. And so EOS was just one of the pieces of that strategy. And the way that we would say it is really we had to take what was tribal knowledge and make it into transferable knowledge. There was so much that was not documented. And we weren't doing things with much of a method. It was just kind of like recreate the wheel all the time. And it,
Hmm.
it wasn't something that was scalable or sustainable necessarily. And so he saw that, and he knew that was something that we needed to work on. And then another thing was in Minnesota around that time, the governor had mandated that ending homelessness in Minnesota.
Hmm.
And so there were a lot of funds being poured into this mandate to end homelessness. But the state and the counties were just needing providers that would serve this population. Um, and so for us, we're like, we see that there's really great need here, and we want to be an answer to that. And so the dream was at that time, right about the time that we started implementing, that we were going to double our organization within 10 years. So at that time, we were about 6 million in revenue, and about 50 team members, which was still pretty
Hmm.
healthy and strong for a
Yeah.
human
Yeah.
services organization, but we knew that we could do more. So that was kind of the reasoning and the impetus of all of it.
Yeah. So your father, the CEO, wanted to make sure that the succession plan 10 years ahead, which I gotta commend him
Hmm.
for doing that,
Yes.
because that's very rare that someone takes that time that
Hmm.
far ahead to really think about it and do something like EOS to ensure that, as you said, tribal knowledge becomes transferable knowledge that will help the business to
Hmm.
endure beyond this generation.
Yeah.
Um, and that's really cool. So, as you were starting down the road with EOS and the family business, what were some of the things you learned?
Oh gosh. We learned so much. It was like getting the business degree that I never got.
Mhm.
um, So, I mean, a huge aspect of it, because we're in a people industry, a service industry. And so, people are truly our greatest asset in an organization like that. But managing people is so tough, and understanding how to really develop them. And, most of our team were kids that were like, this is their first job out of college, right? And so they're learning how to really just kind of basic job skills, and we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
develop them up. And so just how to do all of that, how to really build a strong and healthy culture, how to really engage people, and um, kind of get them from just thinking like an employee to thinking like an owner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that was one of the greatest things that we learned, was how to successfully really build our team um, in a strong way.
Well, yeah. And like you said, if a lot of your people working there were young, you
Mhm,
weren't bringing people in that had established work history, that kind of knew how things happen in this industry and blah, blah,
mhm,
blah. So, as a family business and coming up, like, I mean, honestly, most smaller businesses like this size, you don't have a ton of documentation. You don't have a ton of
mhm.
measures for someone, or well-written job descriptions, or even any at
Mhm.
all at the
Yeah.
most. So I'm
Oh,
sure that
absolutely.
it was hard for you at that point too, to hire people and train them well and
Mhm.
keep the best people, because it wasn't laid out well enough.
No, training was like throwing you into the deep end and you'll figure it out as you go, right? Like, there
Yeah.
were a lot of people that were part of the organization that had stories like that, of that's the way their training went before we really kind of buckled down and worked on how to, document these core processes, like onboarding a new team member. And um so yes, there was a lot that we did in solidifying our processes. And one thing too was, as human services, we weren't able to be competitive when it comes to highly paying people,
Yeah.
and competing with other industries. And they want to come and work and do really difficult work here for less money than they can probably get working at a grocery store sometimes.
Hmm.
And so we really had to figure out, like, how do we draw people in, how do we engage them and retain them, beyond just being able to pay top dollar. And so a huge part of it was, again, kind of back to just building up that culture, and um, yeah, finding ways to really add value to people's lives beyond just the paycheck that we were giving them.
Yeah. That's huge. That's
Mhm.
huge, and it's challenging because, like you said, in the human services business, it's not something where you can pay, Silicon Valley tech prices to everybody. So you really have to figure out
No.
how to how to show people what we're really doing beyond the dollars, that make it fulfilling and
Mhm.
help them achieve their life goals through that.
Yeah.
Ah, so cool. So cool. I'd never thought about how that the challenge of that many younger people in your workforce, it had to be really, really tough, because you were probably at that point hiring a lot of people and only a few could stay, because either for training, or they didn't feel a part of it, or they didn't really understand. Because, EOS starts with mission, vision, values. And
Mhm.
if you don't feel that, you have to, that feeling part that you get from the mission, vision, and values, to really understand what the company stands for.
Mhm.
Uh, People leave. They
Oh,
say, "Well."
absolutely. And I mean, it seems obvious, like, oh, when you're working in human services, like, you're helping people, you're really serving. And so it seems obvious, like, oh, well, that's why people are there, right? But when you're working and doing really tough work, like day in, day out, like they
Yeah.
were, you had to be so intentional, continually reminding them, this is why we're here. This is the impact that you're making, because, you know, they don't necessarily see it every day. Sometimes they're just
Mhm.
getting yelled at by clients, and the clients aren't happy, and it doesn't feel like, they're making any positive impact. And that's real life, right? That's
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
with people. Um, and so, I mean, that was one thing that EOS just really taught us is like how to continually draw the team back in and just be reminding them and talking to them about the vision and the mission and the impact that we're having, and just encouraging them and recognizing them. Like, these are things that when you're getting so busy running your business and trying to manage everything, um, we all know we should be doing them, but we really, those are some of the first things that we lose sight of
Yeah.
in the whirlwind of managing the business. And so that was a huge game changer for us in really building up our culture, is just following that cadence and having that system for building up
Yeah.
our team.
Yeah. So that's pretty incredible. So what do you think? I mean, because there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to EOS. So don't just sugarcoat it. There's a lot of work to do in implementing
A lot.
EOS in a company.
Mhm.
What do you think was the toughest part for you guys in the business?
So the toughest part truly was kind of the family dynamics within the business, and we're a really healthy family. I'll just say that. Like, we're not super dysfunctional. Sometimes when you talk about family business, people are like, "Oof, yeah, I know how that is." And it was like, no, we weren't yelling at each other. It wasn't highly dysfunctional, but it still is really tough working with family. So right off the bat, one of the really difficult things that we went through um, is, part of the implementation process with EOS is to go over your accountability chart, which is basically your org chart, really
Hmm.
figuring out like not what are the current seats or roles that we have in the organization, but what are the seats or roles that we really should have strategically that serves the organization and is going to put us on a path to grow. Um, and so the exercise that you go through is basically like, hey, we're all in this room. We're going to create the accountability chart. You're all now fired from your jobs. Okay. Your board of directors. You no longer are the CEO. You're no longer the president. Like, you don't have jobs. We're going to create an accountability chart that serves the company, not you people in this room. And so we're like, okay. So we go about starting to build it. My husband was in the room. He was a part of the leadership team at the beginning of the day. But then his role was still in the company, but no longer a part of the leadership team. We really realized it didn't really make sense for him to be on the team. And then my mom's seat, she actually didn't really want, and I wanted it. And we kind of had a little bit of a bake off of like, who is the right person for this seat. We had two other people that weren't part of the family, but close family friends that worked with us. They were both kind of business development. And it was like, well, we don't need two. So one of you is gone. So there were some major changes being made to roles to our leadership team. We ended the day, and my husband, my mom, and my previous youth pastor, who's part of our company, are no longer part of the leadership team. And it was like, wow, things just got really real. But the thing is my mom, bless her so much, she's always supportive and just supporting my dad in whatever they're doing, right? And
Hmm.
so she started as HR because that was a need, and just kind of continued in there and grew along with the role. But eventually, I mean, it was like that wasn't where her heart was. She
Hmm.
was really wanting to be home actually watching the grandkids. And it's like so often those things happen where maybe an organization outgrows someone,
Yes.
or we just have someone on the team because they're married to another person on the team. um and it's so tough to have those conversations when we're all family members sitting across the table from us and having an implementer there to help facilitate, kind of make it a safe, just safe environment and help move us through that conversation in a really healthy way, respectful way, but like kind of have to carry some of that burden of like asking the really tough questions and pushing where she saw like, okay, seems like seems like someone's not saying something here. Like let's get that last 10% out on the table. We wouldn't have had those conversations without her there. And it obviously is what served the company and what was needed. So,
Wow, that's incredible. I am so glad you shared that because when you think about it and you go through accountability and building out the company accountability, like you said, everyone's fired, we're starting over and we're going to make it new and what the company needs, what serves the
mhm.
company. Uh your story of how it changed the dynamics in your company is very powerful because it was family members
Yeah.
and and not having a role, and then some not having a role in the leadership team after the meeting's over is
Mhm.
even more powerful. So,
Mhm.
wow. So do you think once you did that, right? There's the challenges of going through that, and obviously not obviously it was good for the business. We'll explain that later, but
Mhm.
um do you think it was easier than not right away, but a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, did things make more sense because of this new accountability and how people were and what they were doing?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think about what the alternative would have been, and it probably would have gotten a lot more painful before we would have been willing to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, especially we're Minnesotans, like we're Minnesota nice, like we're known to be very passive, and so it's like human nature or Minnesotans, like we'd rather just go through months and months of discomfort and pain, and like everyone knows this isn't working before we talk about it, and that makes no sense.
Yes.
And that's why it's so helpful to have someone really guiding you through the process and um, holding you accountable to the process and to
Mhm.
having the right conversations. But yes, absolutely. It like I took over my mom's role and completely flourished and built that up. And she was so happy. She actually had an interior design degree and kind of moved into the facilities role and
Mhm.
doing just that, what she loved. And um, it was absolutely the right move on every part, and everyone saw that. It took a little while for the
Mhm.
emotions to
Yeah.
resolve, but everyone saw that.
When I think about it being in other family businesses, is that is I mean, it's common. It's common. Somebody's child just gets out of business school. Well, they're going to be part of the business in this role, even
Mhm,
if the business doesn't really need it.
mhm,
Or maybe they're not suited for a role, but they're
mhm,
put in that role. And um,
mhm,
this really helps you align that with you go back again though. You go back again to your father's desire to make this business something's going to last far beyond his generation, and
yep,
the forethought and the wisdom in that, knowing that was going to be challenging. Did you think,
mhm.
oh, say first of all, do you think he knew it was going to be this challenging?
I don't think he necessarily expected that. No.
Maybe
No,
want to
because I think
rethought it.
when you're looking at EOS at the start, I think you're thinking like, "We're gonna get some really good systems in
Yeah,
and processes in," and that all is
you
absolutely
do, you
true.
do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, but what is every entrepreneur's biggest issue? It's people.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, everyone we talk to, it's like it's either getting the right people on the bus or managing people. Like, people are our greatest um, asset, like within any organization, but they're
Yes.
also usually the greatest challenge.
Hmm.
And that was the thing that was probably, well, by far most challenging within the implementation process. And it wasn't just with our leadership team and, those hard conversations we had. And we ended up having quite a bit of turnover
Hmm.
due to the EOS implementation. I mean, it wasn't like people weren't citing that and saying it, but we knew, because we were shifting, we were changing, we were still the same company.
Hmm.
But all of a sudden they're like, wait, I don't like being held accountable.
This no, no, this is the part that a lot of business owners excuse me, struggle with in the first place because they themselves don't like that pressure of being held accountable. But the
Hmm.
benefits of it are so huge as your organization grows because not everybody even knows what success looks like to them on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
my idea might be I have to do this level of output, and the company might really need me to do this level of output just to be
Hmm.
baseline.
Hmm.
And if you come back and this is happening, and happens normally happens in businesses that don't have that, now you come back and this person thinks they're working really hard. They've been doing this for a lot of years. They're
Hmm.
they could be happy, everything else, and the company needs this, and that doesn't fly all the time with the people.
No, no, it doesn't. And it's really, really tough because
Yeah.
some of those are like your long-standing
Yes.
employees that have really grown with the company. But one thing that is just like core to EOS is having a growth mindset. And the whole system is built off of that. And the whole
Mhm.
system is intended to help organizations continue to grow. And
Yeah.
so that's one thing that as you're implementing and as you're really bringing your whole organization online with this system, those individuals who are not growth oriented, they don't have that growth mindset, um, they're likely not going to come along for the ride.
Mhm.
And I think that's essentially what happens with,
Yes.
with some people. They're there and they cut it for a while, but the job grows and they're not growing along with it. And we have to be honest, like that's holding our organization back.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you're going to create a culture that's going to engage and retain and provide great careers for the people that are there, and develop a culture where we are trying to grow. We're trying to be better every minute of every day
Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
Those people don't fit in that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And the other thing, and it's funny because I had this very conversation early this morning with a CEO. Um, it's when you get to a certain point, because you guys were at 50 employees at that time, you just can't keep adding people in this tribal knowledge. It doesn't work anymore. It's not you and me
Mm-mm.
in a car or driving around with 4 or 5 of us anymore. It's enough people that you can have people that absolutely do not know what they're doing and doing things
Mhm.
wrong, and not only wrong, but a lot of things not nearly enough wrong,
Mhm.
or just think of the possibilities, and it only compounds as you add more people to that.
Yeah.
So the EOS system, by the accountability and down into the position or the roles,
Mhm.
is so critical, because then Damon knows at the end of the day, if Damon's the janitor and I use this example because it's simple for me. If I'm supposed to be emptying 12 trash cans every day and
Mhm.
sweeping these rooms every day, and that's all I need to
Mhm.
know, if I
Mhm.
do that, I go home and I've done my job.
Yep.
And
Yes,
that's
and
so
it's great. And that's what, like, holding people accountable, there's a lot of people that feel uncomfortable with it because it doesn't feel kind.
yeah.
And what we try to tell people is like, no, that is the kindest thing you can do.
Yes.
Kind is being clear for people
Yes.
to understand where, where where they're at in the organization. Like, are they doing a good job? It's interesting. Like, so many people um, live in fear in their
Mm-hmm.
job. They feel like at any point they might be called to the office and let go. Because there's so much ambiguity about, like, am I doing my job well? Am I meeting expectations? And I really honestly cannot believe how many organizations that we talk to that don't have a clear people management system. And it's like, if you think about that, that's not kind to allow your
Uh-huh.
people to live in this fear of, like, how am I doing and when might I lose my job?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and
and
so
you said it so well. I so say you said it so well. Being clear is kind because
mhm,
when you know that you went home, you said living in fear too, living in fear of not meeting expectations, being called in that office, being let go. But if I know that I'm supposed to do this every day and I do it every day, I'm meeting expectation. I know that.
mhm,
Nobody has to tell me. I know.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that and like you said, it eliminates that fear.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so
So,
cool.
I mean, your team has so much more security. And then, when you were talking too, it's like, um, so many people, like, they want to grow. They want to be improving, the customer experience or whatever it is. They throw more people at problems. But like you were saying, like, if you have a bunch of people that aren't quite doing their job or know what's expected of them, and then we're just adding and compounding that issue with more people, like, we're not solving the issue. And
No.
so that's what I love about EOS is, like, there's really this equal focus on, like, people and process. Like, process is absolutely needed to get what we need to get out of our people, but people are still, like, the most valuable aspect of our organization. And so there's this really healthy balance of both
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true because the process gives us consistency and the people following the process with the training and the accountability and all the things that EOS provides a system behind it allows them to do the job really well.
Yep.
Gives
Yep.
it facilitates that.
Yeah.
So let's we're gonna talk just for a moment and then we're gonna talk about today. But
Okay.
so you implement EOS and you're working down the process and things get humming. So
Mhm.
what happened with the company after you guys implemented EOS and you started on down the road and really seeing the benefits of it?
Well, so it took us about 2 years to go through the implementation process.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that goal of doubling the organization in 10 years, and we ended up achieving that in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
And so we were just, like, blown away at ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and so we ended that goal at, 12 million and about 170 team members in less than 5 years. And um, we we really were able to grow and scale at that point. So when we started implementing EOS, we had maybe about, I'm trying to think, it was 5 or 6 locations serving our clients in the
Mm-hmm.
communities in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and we were up to about 13 by the time that we hit that goal. And so there were so many ways that we grew, and I don't know, we were just blown away, honestly. And it became fun. You talk about, like, man, it's uncomfortable. Like, I don't love being held accountable. And, like, most of us, it is uncomfortable at points, but when everybody is just really upping their game and it's like, well, I'm being held accountable, but everyone else is too. And so I'm now a part of this team where like we're all killing it. Like we're kicking butt. And like
Yeah.
this is a team where we have amazing synergy. Um, because we're all really well aligned with the roles that we're in, because we didn't just get the role because we're a family member. We got it because that is our true strength, and unique ability in this company. Like we we just started having so much fun. And one of the times that we're fast forwarding now, but one of the times we really saw that play out was during COVID. Um, COVID hits and we're in human services where it's like we're serving people literally in person. You know,
Yeah.
we can't shut down, like we have to keep going. And there's
Hmm.
all this guidance coming out sometimes on a daily basis, changing on a daily basis, all the PPE that we had to be wearing or procedures to do. I mean, it was incredibly overwhelming. We had team members that were afraid, like, what's going to happen if I go to work, and what if I
Hmm.
get COVID, and all of that. And so it was a scary time, and it was a really difficult time to lead. Um, but we had this team that was just like we said over and over, it's like a dream team. If you have to unfortunately navigate this level of challenge within our industry, like I would not want to do it with anyone else. And the only reason we had built a team like that is because we had truly like gone through this accountability chart
Hmm.
exercise and got the right people in the right seats, and then um, continue developing the team
Yeah.
in a big way.
Yeah. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Wow. If
Yeah.
that's not a powerful example of what getting the right people and the right things together will do, I don't know what is. So you're here, we're through this, and you go, okay, it's time I'm ready to be an EOS implementer. I think this what was the decision that really said, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to make a really long story short. um, but I was a part of the succession team for my family business, and I was all in. And then my life took a giant turn. My husband actually passed away, and this was 5 years ago now. I stayed at the company for a while, but I just felt my life shifting, and
Hmm.
I was like, everything that I assumed was gonna happen in my future, and that the future that I was gonna build and we were gonna build together, that's kind of poof gone.
Uh-huh.
And so I was just kind of really open, like, what's next? Um, and so I ended up meeting my husband now, Jeff, and he actually, his wife had passed away too. So both widows, and we got married um, almost 3 years ago. And so I was still at the family business. He was leading a church in Minnesota. And we got married, and he assured my family, like, I'm not stealing Allie from the business. Like, she's going to stay there. I'm going to do my thing. It's all good. And then he was talking to me about, challenges that they were having at the church. And I was like, you really need to read the book Traction. Just like, you need this.
Yeah.
Because I knew, I'm like, we've been through all of this. I know the answer. So just read it. And he did. And he was like, where has this been for the last 10 years? Oh my word. And he actually ended up stealing me from the family business, and I came to work at the church and kind of did a self implementation.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's kind of where he first encountered EOS. And then it was funny, one day we were in the car and we are like, okay, we have 7 kids, and like only, it was a small team at the church, only 6 employees there. If we know that we need like the EOS system at church, but we actually have more kids than we do team members, like why do we not think we need this at home, right? And so we just went all in. We are like, we run our lives on EOS. I mean, Jeff and I literally have like a level 10 meeting every Monday morning, just the
Oh,
two of us.
nice.
And, it truly works in all industries and aspects of life, let me tell you. But so then kind of next step of us building our family, really blending together and looking at what's next for us together. We ended up moving out to Salt Lake, and so that was a bit of a fresh start, career change, and we asked
Mm-hmm.
ourselves like, what do we want to do? And truly, like, our hearts are to serve and really encourage people and help them do what they've been put on this earth to do, um, more successfully. And so that was just the thing. We're like, obviously, EOS is the way to do that. So I became a professional EOS implementer. He's the biggest EOS super fan you'll ever meet.
There
We
you
both
go.
drank the orange Kool-Aid. We love
There you
it.
go.
So that's kind of
Good.
how that all came about. Yeah.
Well, and like I said, and like in the title, I mean, um, you've seen EOS from both sides, and
Hmm.
like you said, in your family business, it made such a big difference. In the church, it made a big difference, and now in your
Hmm.
family too,
Hmm.
in your family,
Hmm.
which is super cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and then just deciding to go all in and help others do it out of
Yeah.
that desire to serve. It's
Hmm.
awesome. So. Wow, Allie. It's awesome. We're getting to the point to where we need to wind down. So I've got a couple questions yet, but uh
Yeah.
what's the most fun about helping people implement EOS?
Um, I think honestly, it is so one thing that we've just noticed talking to so many entrepreneurs, um, I think they're like heroes. I love them. They do just being an entrepreneur is a really hard road.
Yeah.
Um, it's a ton of risk that you're taking on. It's a giant struggle when you're just starting out. And one thing that we've seen is just that people feel so like isolated at times and just like heavy and like they're carrying a large weight. And so one of the things that like I think is most fun is just seeing that relief that people get when they're like, "Oh my gosh, we can solve that. Like I don't have to carry all of that. I don't have to do this alone.
Hmm.
Um, you have a solution for this thing." Just the relief. Um, so that's kind of what like keeps us moving is just again being able to encourage people and really serve them and help them do what they do best. And yeah, that's what's most fun for us.
Yeah. You and Jeff were on a podcast here a while back, and you said you're showing them how to live while they're still in their business, because so many people
Yeah.
are just tied to their business and it
Hmm.
rules their day. I think
Hmm.
that's a good way of explaining what EOS will help people to do, and I'm sure that
Absolutely.
that feeling when they can take a vacation, they
Hmm.
don't feel like they don't, the guilt, the numerous phone calls and text messages and emails don't, keep them up, so they don't have a vacation is a good feeling.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's important. Like that's why entrepreneurs do what they do, right? To like have control over their lives and to build a certain quality of life and to have that like independence and
Hmm.
autonomy and um, that's what a lot of people lose in the process. And it's like, well, let us help you get that back, or if you never had it, let us help you get it.
Get it.
Before you just want to throw your hands up and be like, I'm done, I'm out, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so great. It's so great. Yeah. What we always say when we're talking with people and we're like, okay, we're scaling our businesses. It's like, listen, you got in this business because you wanted to, A, you probably thought you could make more money. B, you wanted
Hmm.
more freedom. And
Hmm.
C, you probably wanted to make a bigger impact. And
Yeah.
you're not really able to do much of that right now,
Hmm.
like you wanted. And it's
Yeah.
great how people like yourself are helping with implementing EOS and helping these entrepreneurs really figure out ways to take their life back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Well, Allie, thanks so much for being here today. If people want to get a hold of you, now you guys are in the Salt Lake City area. What's the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Honestly, okay, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram, but that is not the best way. I am an analog girl in a
There you
digital
go.
world, right? So you can
There you go.
email me. You can email me. I love to have a conversation with people and just um,
Very good.
yes.
Very good. All right. Well, Allie, thanks so much for being here today. And we were talking about the entrepreneurial operating system, both sides. You shared how you implemented your family business, how you helped your husband implement it in his church. You guys have implemented it in your family, and now you're helping other business owners and entrepreneurs do it. Thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, everyone else that was listening, Andiola, thanks for dropping in and having the comment. Everyone else that was listening and didn't comment, we appreciate you being there, listening in the cars, working out, whatever you're doing. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back again. Allie, hang out just for a moment and we'll wrap up after we're done.